Well, it's all eyes on central Kenya as Jubilee unleashes its firepower and charm offensive on voters there who are feared to be turning a bit lukewarm over massive graft allegations against the government they voted in almost to the last man. The president has been categorical in his trip there. It's all propaganda, he says, no substance. Tonight also, Iron Lady Martha Karua also got a taste of what it will be like in the contest for governorship there. This is News Sources. We're all about sources. The highlights.
Mama Martha Karua, hawa wananchi wanasema hawana shida na wewe, shida ni chama. Ama mnasema namna gani?
Nimwambia ukifanya mazuri nitakusifu, lakini ukifanya mabaya nitakukosoa. Hii ndio kazi yangu, kukosoa na kutetea wananchi.
Good evening, welcome to News Sources. Now, Kenya leader Martha Karua today joined President Uhuru Kenyatta in what looked like a campaign stop in Kirinyaga. Karua, who just recently announced her candidature for the governor seat, has been warming up to President Uhuru Kenyatta to enhance her chances of electability. Uhuru Kenyatta took the opportunity to urge Martha to fold up her small party and join the big Jubilee party. Let's see how all that went.
NAK Kenya Kirinyaga branch, and I am part of that branch, resolved to back the re-election of President Kenyatta. And I am careful to say branch because NAK Kenya has given its branches the leeway to decide.
All right, we do apologize for that clip, but we should play the clip that we had played earlier on. My director should be able to find it, but let's join Duncan Haema and Billy Murori. Gentlemen, we've seen today Martha Karua getting booed, in that campaign stop. What really happened, Billy?
I think for Martha Karua is the feeling about her 2013 opposition to Uhuru Kenyatta. So even when she is facing her people, it's like this is a person who maybe betrayed us. This is somebody who was not with us. So there are some elements that still feel like, oh, you went. But I think there will be more of that because of the local politics.
All right. Well, we'll surely be showing our audience how that exactly went. It was quite fiery, Duncan. The NAK Kenya leader, standing there trying to address an audience. They're not listening to any of that.
It was expected for the simple reason that Martha Karua, she's been in opposition until safely to say today morning. For the last 4 years, she's spoken her mind, told off the Jubilee administration, teamed up with CORD, you remember the Okoa Kenya push and all that, and she's been telling off the Jubilee administration in no uncertain terms, particularly regarding war against corruption. And therefore, for her the other day to say that she's decided what her supporters will do if they back the president, she's for that idea, and then joining the team today, her booing was expected.
What really is the problem here? Because she's already put her cards on the table and says, I have no problem with President Uhuru Kenyatta, all right, as the presidential candidate. What I'm asking for is quite a different seat. What's the problem in that?
The problem is that people may need to understand that in places like central Kenya, the voting is usually homogeneous. So they will only accept that she has really joined Uhuru by folding her party. Whether she supports Uhuru and still keeps her party, I don't think she is going to really make any political comeback.
Would that be just, political suicide for her to, fold her party and, join Jubilee?
Whichever way she does it, she's doomed. Doomed if she does, doomed if she doesn't. Because 2013, when, as Mwiruri says, it was a do-or-die affair for people from Central Kenya and Rift Valley. Remember, the card that was flashed was an anti-ICC. And they said, you have to wake up, we vote up to the last man. If we are to save our sons, then defeat the dragon called ICC. Martha took a different path, castigated the president, said he's not even fit to run as president, given that he had a tag of crimes against humanity and all sorts of accusations that had been leveled against him. Now, for her to turn around and say that now I want to support him, maybe the supporters feel like it's late, too little, too late in the day, and therefore that's why it will be very, very problematic for her. In fact, it's even more political, suicidal for her to fold up and go battle with the real Jubilee sharks, as to say, because I'm sure there are sharks that are already marked their territories within Jubilee.
Let's flip this for President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru. What's the problem Martha Karua presents for them, or
we must be alive to the fact that the campaigns have almost started in various places, and Martha and Waiguru and the governor of Kirinyaga, Joseph Daddy, they come from the same constituency. And those who have been campaigning for the gubernatorial seats, they see Martha as a Johnny Kamletri. So the resistance, actually, Martha was a victim of local politicking, where those who have been in Jubilee think that she's coming as an intruder. So I think the booing might, she's not really very welcome at the grassroots level.
Not welcome at the grassroots level. Let's just bring our audience up to speed with what happened today when President Uhuru Kenyatta, in his trip where he visited parts of Central Kenya and Kirinyaga, part of it, and Kenya leader Martha Karua was in tow to welcome the head of state and his deputy. This is what happened. Take a look.
Mama Martha Karua. Asante sana Mama Martha Karua. Hawa wananchi wanasema hawana shida na wewe, shida ni chama. Ama mnasema namna gani? Huyu mama ni mama mzuri, lakini akuje Jubilee. Si mnasema hivyo? Mmesema akuje wapi? Jubilee. Nasikia Mama Martha Karua, unajua sasa sauti ya wananchi ndio.
Okay, now you're properly seized of the matter. That's just how politically charged it was. Impossible for her to address the public. It was impossible for her to pass any message. And she was defiant in the end by flashing the NAK Kenya salute. So she's not coming to Jubilee.
I think Martha Karua is a very strong woman, and she attracts a lot of support for her courage and her boldness. But by the same token, Martha Karua also attracts a lot of resentment for her defiance. Like now, I think what she has done is like she has really brought her character, the one that many people who oppose her don't like.
Can that win her, support?
I think the time for that support from her courage is gone. The mother who would have made Kirinyaga, who would have changed Kirinyaga political scene, would be a mother who comes back humble, accepting that Uhuru Kenyatta is the king of Central Kenya, join him in Jubilee because people in Central Kenya have decided to join Jubilee, and then support from within. And then she be subjected to the nomination process, and perhaps she could even win. But when she flashes her NAK Kenya slogan, at a time when people think that she wants to join Jubilee, people feel like she's actually supporting Uhuru half-heartedly. So she must, for her to survive in Kenya, she must come back as a humble person than the defiant person.
Than a defiant Martha.
Yes.
Dan, I think this Martha has always been sort of this strong-willed personality. It's impossible for you to imagine Martha, as Billy says, that Martha who's humble, who folds up and just shows up and says, well, this is it, you know, I'm fine and whatever. It's almost impossible to imagine that will happen.
Yes, and remember she's referred as the Iron Lady of Kenyan politics. But as Mwiruri says, I think she needs to realize that times have changed. She's gone, she's trooped back home when it's late. And for her, she's in a very, very delicate and precarious situation. As I alluded earlier, doomed if she does. If she folds up and joins Jubilee, of course, today, clearly she was set up because those ones that were booing her, I'm sure you can be able to pinpoint their supporters to a specific aspirant. And they know the dangers, knowing that she's a seasoned politician. They know too well what awaits them if she joins that. So they have to make it difficult, sort of ring fence, so that she fights from the periphery.
Let's move forward. And President Uhuru Kenyatta, his deputy, and the entire Jubilee are on a 2-day tour of central Kenya that I think ended today. The head of state has used the meeting to castigate his main challenger, Raila Odinga, for what he terms propaganda on the war on corruption. Jubilee government has been battling corruption allegations for months, while opposition has been piling pressure on the head of state to act or go home.
Kila saa, hata nchi ikiendelea mbele, wajaribu kutuvuta turudi nyuma na siasa ya mgawanyiko.
Rais Uhuru Kenyatta ni ndugu yangu mdogo. Nimwambia ukifanya mazuri nitakusifu, lakini ukifanya mabaya nitakukosoa. Hii ndio kazi yangu.
Well, there you go. And can have the first go at this. This is the thing, we have sort of like a narrative, you know, that has taken sort of like a center stage in the last possibly month or so. That the opposition are latching on corruption and Jubilee failing to counter the corruption narrative. And this is what we have, you know, the president going back to his bucket and saying, this is all propaganda, good people, just leave this thing alone.
And it's what we discussed last week, and I said somebody needs to advise the government, do something or appear to be seen to be doing something. It's the work of the opposition to critique, punch holes. However good you've done, that's why they are called the opposition. You don't expect them to come and give you a pat on the back. So if the government will play into the game of the opposition, they will realize we are now about 7 months to the next general election. Time will catch up with them when they are still exchanging in this exchanges with the opposition. The opposition knows what it's doing. Next week, they'll come up with something. For instance, what we've seen, the exchanges on who should fight corruption. Really, how do you expect the opposition to do what? What instruments of power do they have? What authority do they have on DCI? And all that, investigative agencies and all that. So the government needs to retract, go back to the drawing board and look at how they're going to counter all sorts of narratives. But if they continue with this game, remember, they are dealing with a person who, in Atoli's words, has been in the politics industry as early as the age of 14. I don't know how true that is.
We have a culture in this country where political leaders will go back to their villages, especially when they want to whip some sympathy. The opposition leader Raila Odinga is known to go to Kibera. Like even the other day, when Wetangula and Kalonzo were having a joint for the Kenya meeting, he went to be installed as a Luo elder in Siaya. But I think this is quite diversionary. People want to hide from the real facts because the opposition, the government, has the capacity, has the institutions, and I support the opposition for saying that we cannot fight corruption. Only that the opposition has also the tendency of just politicking, fighting corruption through mere politicking. And the problem with us, the media, is that we are also giving them space and airtime to throw all manner of corruption allegations without really substantiating.
You see, the problem with this narrative is this, Billy, that the opposition doesn't have those instruments of power, but also, as our parliament is set up and we've set up our politics, is that they actually get this information just like we do, like in the media. So they will know about the corruption allegations in Kilifi when the thing is uploaded in the auditor's website, while the government will be given a white paper at least before we know about it. So we can't judge them on the same level, can we?
Yeah, the problem with the fight of corruption in Kenya is also about maybe the way our institutions are structured, because we have been accusing the judiciary of not really nailing these people or jailing them. But the judiciary also waits for the investigating agencies to bring admissible evidence. So a judge will not just jail you because the media has said that you have stolen. So I think actually the major challenge in the fight against corruption is getting substantive information, concrete evidence presented in court. So I think this blame game, every institution tries to do the blame game.
Ndegwa Mohoro has asked that question during the State House Summit on corruption and accountability. He said, they are at a loss. When you look at other cases that the DCI, of course with the DPP and the other investigative agencies, whenever they are presented to court, they sort of proceed and in what can be termed as a relatively faster manner. But when it comes to corruption is where we have problems. Of course, cases being told, short investigations, no watertight evidence. And they are saying themselves they are at a loss because the same mechanism they employ in investigating other cases are employed when it comes to anti-corruption and economic crimes. There's a question, there's always a question there, and none other than the mortician himself has questioned that why is it that somebody is charged today in an anti-corruption court instead of the matter being handled, even if there's an appeal within the same court, it's taken to some other jurisdiction, and by the time it is determined that it goes back to the same court, it's almost 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Okay. So there's a problem in the judiciary, as the mortician said, that could be the weakest link in the fight against corruption.
Okay, let's shift gears. And the questions of corruption seems to have jolted an otherwise confident and a happy house. Jubilee politicians whose first instincts had been to fight graft claims on press conferences have adopted a new tactic that involves going back home to the ground. The politicians have absolved government of any wrongdoing, saying talk on corruption in Kenya is just but an opposition ploy. Billy, let's talk about just how difficult it's been, like you said, to talk about corruption and politicizing corruption. Okay, so the question of the political will, that has been missing. That has been missing in Jubilee's government. They say it's almost a responsibility of everyone else except them to fight corruption and in government.
First, smarter, two wrongs don't make a right. You have seen the opposition the government trying to, when they are cornered for corruption because it is happening actually, then they also say, the opposition, you have also stolen the money. But I don't understand why this thing about corruption would really crowd us, because if it is about the FB system is so clear that you can trace the man. So it's about personal responsibility here. I think we have not been having very tough on personal responsibility, because what we have been seeing is that if there is corruption in the Ministry of Health, people want to look at the PS or because of the accounting officer or the CS, yet there is somebody who can be traced about how that money went. So I think we need to really look at
the question of political will. Okay, I've never seen Jubilee standing there and say that it's our responsibility to fight corruption. It's everyone else's, independent institutions, it is, courts, and all these things. Just the people in government, the people who run this country say it's not their responsibility to fight corruption. They don't think it's theirs.
Actually, Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore painfully talks about the time coming, about it being time to question whether there's that political will to fight corruption. Tell you what, sometime last year towards the end, the private sector, they actually took less than 3 weeks to draft and prepare an anti-bribery bill, which they handed over to the president around 23rd December 2015. We almost another December, Jubilee, which clearly could have taken advantage of its tyranny of numbers or tyranny of numbers to work through Parliament, at least to push that one bill to be enacted into law. It could have really helped, because whatever the private sector had been tasked and what they came up with, they'd sort of try to seal loopholes, particularly within their sector. Nothing is happening, and that is why we said we need to ask, I think it's Parliament that needs to be asked, particularly this 11th Parliament, what have they done? And it's the same question I asked. If we'll say goodwill or what, I think Parliament could be the reason why, as the President says, what do you want him to do? There is an arm that is supposed, mandated to carry out oversight. You want to tell me with all these rumors about how many sorts of scandals we are having, nothing, not even one has ever come from Parliament. Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen has done this and said his fingers are itching. The Gumbo-led committee should call him. How many weeks are we down the line? Why are they not summoning him? And they were very fast in calling Kafura, Mangiti, Waiguru. But when it comes to Murkomen, he has told them, please summon me, I'll come. Why are they not moving? Who hinders them? Now that is the question of Parliament could be the real problem because they have failed spectacularly in their oversight role.
Yeah, the issue of political will is debatable because from the scandals that have come from the various ministries, there is always a big politician involved in a way, either directly or through cronies. Sometimes when the corruption gets to that level, then the big boys now start fighting against they start sabotaging the investigation process. So I think it's because politicians are also accomplices in this corruption network.
But remember the other parliaments, the 7th parliament, Musikari Nazi Kombo, none other than himself in 2000, led by Kina Martha Karua and Kina Muita and the rest. They came up with the first ever list of shame, which implicated including the then Vice President, the late Professor George Saitoti. The 8th Parliament did wonders. The 9th Parliament, 10th Parliament. How come the 11th Parliament is where we seem to be having a problem, which has the largest number of members of Parliament, which has now the strongest constitution in Kenya's history? Where is the problem? So clearly it's a game of musical chairs, and I think this particular Parliament should be held actually to account on what exactly have they done in as far as their oversight role is concerned.
I think, Smart, in the countries where they have fought corruption in big time, I think the presidency or the president of those countries is usually the key promoter of that fight against corruption. So I think the buck also stops with the President Kenyatta, because if there is anything that will affect Jubilee's election campaign, will be this corruption. So the president must take a decisive.
You make a good point.
Decision.
You make a good point. Fish rots from the head, brings there, right? And now, Cabinet Secretaries Henry Rotich and Devolution CS Mwangi Kionjori are keeping with this overall theme that there is no corruption in Kenya. The two CSs who were in Karatina ahead of President Stua faulted the opposition on graft claims, accusing Opposition Chief Raila Odinga of causing voter apathy in central Kenya. The SS say Raila is causing potential Jubilee voters to shy away by exposing corruption. Explain to me, how does this work?
I thought yesterday the deputy president said that there was nothing as such. Yesterday the president and the deputy were very categorical in Nyeri and said kwamba yule jamaa anasema ati mutapiga kura. Is it true? And they said no. So again today their CSs are saying that there's a potential voter apathy. I don't know.
How does this work? I'm still interested in how it works.
I think this voter apathy talk in Central is just...
but who creates it?
It's a middle-class affair and a media issue. The little villager in Central Kenya will come out to vote for Uhuru Kenyatta, because I happen to be part of, I happen to be one of the people who happened to catch up with the president in Moranga, and you could actually see the enthusiasm of the locals. It's only that the president had disappeared, and people were feeling, especially the members of parliament, like they had been ignored. So the president was coming back as an absentee father with the goodies. So people in Central Kenya still vote for Uhuru Kenyatta, 80% and above.
80%. Tana,
Yeah.
where was this conversation? Because it's been building up and we've been hearing it.
What we know is for sure is so long as there's a Raila Odinga mention, people will come out in doves to vote. So actually, yes, that issue of voter apathy doesn't arise, although Jubilee has every reason to get worried because they have not made inroads apart from their strongholds in 2013. Areas they targeted, the coast region, Kisii Western, still remains hostile. Therefore, they really have to move with speed and make sure that they consolidate. Remember in 2013, the two regions voted almost to a last man. And therefore, they just have to come and tell them, this is the narrative. Are you people with us or not against us? But are you with us or against us? And that's why Mwiruri says that could be a perception or a narrative being created on WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, the middle class. But when the hour comes, they will come out. So long as they know that Raila is there, they'll come out and vote.
There are fears of voter apathy, but I think the real cause for voter apathy would not be because Raila Odinga is selling the agenda of corruption against Jubilee. But I think the formation of Jubilee Party can be a cause of voter apathy, because in Central Kenya or the Mount Kenya region, when you do the nominations and then you have the Jubilee candidate, without competition at the lower levels of the county, the MPs and the whatever, then people will just say the Jubilee candidates have already won.
Yes.
So I think there is nothing that really that mobilizes Central Kenya people to vote, especially after the nomination.
Okay, so my final question on this point is this, that so what motivates the vote-rich Central Kenya to go and vote this time again in 2017 to the last one? What is that one thing? We know in the last election it was ICC. What is that motivates Central Kenya to vote the last one in this election again? what is that one thing, Billy? Help me understand it.
The one thing would be to stop Raila Odinga. I think Central Kenya will wake up very early, just not necessarily to support Uhuru Kenyatta, but to ensure that Raila Odinga does not become
2013
president.
was Raila Odinga and ICC. So 2017?
Still Raila Odinga.
Still Raila Odinga. Okay, I'm asking you on Twitter, do you think Raila Odinga is causing voter apathy in Central Kenya by exposing corruption? Do you think Raila Odinga is causing voter apathy in Central Kenya by exposing corruption? And people are tweeting in. I don't know what you feel about that. There's Mburu Moses on Twitter, who also goes by the name Baba Joseph, says the mention of Raila Odinga candidature fires everyone to vote in Central Kenya. There is no apathy. Absolutely no apathy. There can't be. While you're watching these sources, we'll be right back with more, taking a short break and go too far.